Welcome to our fabulous panel today. I'll go ahead and introduce our moderator, Dan Burgar, the co-founder of Shape Immersive. As the Vancouver VRAR Association president and founder, he is a true pioneer in the technology space and influencer within the VRAR industry, where he co-founded Shape Immersive, a company specializing in building VRAR and 3D development that collaborates with notable brands in many facets, including retail and leaders like Red Bull, Olympics, Disney, Star Atlas, and RTFKT Studios. So welcome, Dan. I'll let you go ahead and introduce the rest of your panel.
Thank you so much for the intro. Sorry about my voice. I've lost it over the past few days, so please bear with me. Welcome to our panel. We're really excited to be here. Really excited to be amongst people again. And it's really good to be a part of the community and really get back at events like this. So I'm really excited to be here with my panelists. Angela, did you want to do a quick intro?
Sure. So my name is Angela Robert, and I'm the CEO of a company called Conquer Experience. And at Conquer Experience, we've got a product called PeriOp Sim, which provides training and assessment for operating room nurses. And we've been doing this for a few years now. And currently on our platform, we've had over 2,000 trainees and over 100,000 simulations, which we're really excited about.
Thank you, Angela. Good morning, everybody. My name's Danny Goel. I'm an orthopedic surgeon in Vancouver, British Columbia, as well as CEO and founder of Precisionos. What we do at Precisionos is we provide simulation for surgical trainees, surgeons, medical device reps, and ancillary staff. And we've been at this for about 4.5 years. Our primary customers are the medical device companies as well as the residency programs. And we're very excited to be here and talk about what we've been doing.
All right, so I'm the non-health startup here, I guess, right? I guess Dan's not health either, but. Yeah. So my name's Tony Bevilacqua. I'm the founder and CEO of Cognitive 3D. Second time founder, so ran a company before this in kind of the mobile analytics space. Realized that there was a fantastic opportunity to understand and realize human performance through immersive technology, and founded Cognitive 3D in the best place that I thought that we could thrive, which was Vancouver, British Columbia. We've been operating since 2015, first product in market 2016, and we focus on helping developers, brands, training companies, consumer researchers understand how humans are performing within synthetic environments.
Thanks, guys. Really, I think today we're going to be really diving into how to really build powerful and vibrant communities. They say a rising tide floats all boats, and that's really what it's all about in our nascent industry. It's really about not putting our cards close to our chest, but it's about being able to collaborate and be able to kind of help each other be able to take that next step. So we're going to kind of give you guys a bit of a glimpse into the Vancouver ecosystem as well. Vancouver, over the past 7 years, I've worked and really looked at building community. It has grown from 15 companies to over 250. And that's because there's a special sauce in Vancouver that I feel that not many regions have, but there's also, a special kind of, there's ingredients within the ecosystem, I think, that, other regions can actually replicate as well, within, the VR/AR landscape. And I think within Vancouver, the visual effects, animation, games, and tech sector has really driven the growth of our community. So I'd love to kind of bring it to the panel and get your guys' take on why do you think Vancouver has become such a powerful region, and why are you guys excited to be building your companies there? Tony, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I kind of had a choice in where I was going to start this current startup. I was actually in Florida running another company called Kinetic, and the Orlando ecosystem is really interesting too, in that they have a lot of kind of gaming experience. EA Tiburon is there, and there's a good amount of kind of ingredients there. But I always found it kind of there's a good barrier to entry in kind of terms of communicating with other founders, other groups. It was very much focused on kind of the large businesses, the large simulation companies, and it was really hard to kind of break in. So I started reaching out to people in Vancouver, which is where I was born and where I was from, and just wanted advice, like what's Vancouver like? Should I come back home and build my startup here, or should I be going somewhere else like the Bay Area? I found people in Vancouver, especially the founders and startups, are incredibly approachable, and I was able to get a lot of great advice, instantly connected with the resources that I needed to succeed, in terms of like meeting, incubators, accelerators, getting hooked up with an attorney, all the things that I needed to do to kind of get, started. Not to mention some of the advisors that I had talked to started throwing me talent as well, in terms of people that were interested in joining a new startup. And the other thing that I kind of realized when I started looking into this, the market, is just like how much gaming experience, VFX and film, that there was in the space, and how much crossover there was with this new industry. And that was really kind of the key and kind of the final decision on like why we would go to Vancouver versus any other market.
Danny?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. I've been sort of thinking about it over the last 4 years as to why what's happened in Vancouver to us. So for background, as mentioned, I'm an orthopedic surgeon, and you use the analogy of ships, which I think is a really good analogy, because healthcare travels in a ship, and it's been traveling in the night, and then tech has been traveling in a ship as well. And it just so happened that the two industries, which don't really mix and match, did mix and match. And so the tech industry has been evolving over the last 20 years, and healthcare in BC has been evolving over the last 20 years. And it just so happens that we're at a point now where the technology can actually provide significant value to the healthcare space. And I know I'm focusing on healthcare, but it speaks to the intelligence and the skill of the ability of the people that come from game development, visual effects, having that label as being Hollywood of the North, where there's 100 movies that are being developed in Vancouver, commercials and things like that. And that ecosystem is really now ripe to intersect with industry, healthcare being one of them. But there's other industries that are there. There's some plant industries that have crossed over with the tech space. And it's just a matter of going out of your comfort zone and saying, is there something that some other industry can offer me, and could it be tech related?
Angela?
Well, I was living in Vancouver prior to this company, and I had another company, and I think I really echo what both Tony and Danny have said in terms of the ecosystem or community being really supportive for startups. So there's tons of organizations, a ton of networking events, awesome people like Dan to pull us into opportunities at any chance he gets. Like one of the cool things that he's done for us is TED is now hosted in Vancouver. And we've been able to participate in, the TED Startup Showcase prior, which was a really cool thing that is, definitely Vancouver-centric. And, we've had the AR/VR Summit for the last few years locally as well. And so that has been huge just in terms of connecting people and bringing people to us as founders, so we don't necessarily have to always spend all the travel money and time to go elsewhere. So it's nice when you have that in your backyard. And prior to founding my companies, I worked at Electronic Arts, and these teams building some of the world's best sports simulation games, which there's a lot of crossover into healthcare simulation. These are massive teams of like 150, 300 people building some of the highest quality entertainment, pushing the boundaries of the hardware, being really good at technology and at the creation process. And that experience, I worked there for 5 years, and just having that experience, really helped me understand, what it takes to build a good product in the VR space and digital space, and what types of people you need to hire. And you've got, working with that many developers, right? There's like 2,000 of us at the studio in Vancouver. You've got a lot of access to talent and real relationships that you've developed. And the real difference is, you don't necessarily have $30 to $100 million to spend on building some of the technology or products that we have today in 1 year, every single year. Now it's kind of spread out. And so, doing some of those expectation settings in terms of product development and roadmap has been also interesting in setting those quality bars appropriately as well.
Thanks, Angela. Yeah, I think one thing, especially just seeing from examples of you three, is the perseverance and the sheer will to be able to succeed in the VR AR industry, especially up north where the investment doesn't flow as frequent as Silicon Valley. I think I've seen companies really be able to really become leaders in this industry over many, many years. And, I actually think they're probably one of the more stronger companies because within this industry, because, they just, we don't have that access to capital. Tony, do you want to maybe touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, Vancouver founders need to be resilient. You need to hustle. You kind of have to be the best that you possibly can be in terms of just working with the resources that you have. You need to get on planes. You need to, really kind of, work with customers. And I think what Vancouver has taught me is how to, especially in this particular industry, is play the long game. And I think there's good resources and tools to be able to do that. But we've been able to take advantage of the Vancouver market, in a major way. We've been able to bring US dollars back into Canada, which has been a huge differentiator for us and access a number of different capabilities. And I'm sure we'll get into that later. But, it's really been kind of a key differentiator. And, when I look back and reflect on Cognitive 3D and how we've kind of had to survive, some of the winter stages of this particular industry, I don't know that I would have been able to do it in any place other than Vancouver.
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. The way I think of it as we always have our back against the wall, and that's sort of like this buzz term that's tossed around when people are, they say if you take a loan from a bank, your back is against the wall because you have to make that payment. So the way we've sort of developed, and we're almost 40 people now in Vancouver and don't have VC funding, is that we've always been sensitive to the fact that, and this is just a generic term, which is always be focused on the problem, and always be focused on the problem. Never assume that your product makes sense, because if you start to create it in a silo, and to Tony's point, getting on a plane, talking to a customer, focusing on what they hate about your product, because you're always going to hear how great VR is, or XR in general. It's focusing on the negative feedback and then going back and saying, does this really solve their problem? And I think, having developers that can sort of resonate with that, and as Angela mentioned, they come from a lot of experience, so they're happy to pivot. And my two co-founders have been in the industry for 25 years each, so they can pivot on a dime and do something that may take other developers who are less experienced several weeks, maybe a month, they could do like overnight or in a weekend. And so I think having that sensitivity, checking your ego at the door always has allowed us to sort of grow as we have, organically, without having to, raise money and not having it readily accessible like we do, or they do in San Francisco.
Yeah, and I think one of the key things that a lot of people that don't come from Canada or haven't, connected with companies from Canada don't realize is that we have a lot of access to government funding. So a lot of grants, a lot of R&D, tax credits as well, or investment directly into creating IP. So as an example, and don't quote me on the percentages 100%, but we'll get a tax credit for 50 to 60% of any of our investment in R&D. And that's a check written to us from the government at the end of the year for investing in that, that development. So although we don't have a lot of VCs, we've got a lot of non-dilutive funding, which definitely helps us get by. And they do act in many ways like investors. So there's, different technical people that will evaluate the solution, or business people that will evaluate, is what you're actually building the right thing, and is it really advancing the state of things. So I think that that is super powerful. And then also we've got, some really great talent coming out of the schools. So people know, and it's not in BC specifically, but like Waterloo and UBC and SFU have really great computer science programs as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, especially in Vancouver, we have probably one of the most in-depth talent bases in the world, because we do have the 3D talent, the visual effects talents, and the VR AR talent, which comprises of the soup of amazing 3D talents to be able to drive some of this next wave of technology. I think the investments landscape as well is starting to shift. We've seen that in Vancouver with 12 unicorns in 10 months, which is almost unheard of in Vancouver. And also this confluence that's happening in Web3 and the Metaverse. We have one of the biggest NFT blockchain companies, Dapper Labs, that are based in Vancouver. And we have one of the top VRAR ecosystems. And then also you look at the visual effects, animation, and games industries that are top 2, top 3 in the world. We're really becoming kind of this future tech city, and it's really kind of about playing to those advantages, and really looking at how can we kind of showcase this technology to that kind of next wave of talent. Tony, do you want to kind of give me a bit of a glimpse of some of the programs that you've been able to tap into through government, and how that's really helped you to skyrocket what you're up to?
Yeah, sure. So, Angela mentioned it earlier. We take advantage of a program called SHRED. It's scientific research, experimental development or something, something like that.
Good job.
Thank you very much. There's a lot of acronyms in Canada. Anyway, so we take advantage of this program. We're obviously building kind of on the fringe in terms of like what is possible with analytics. This is not charts and graphs. We're building something that's unique and novel, and Canada has programs to kind of encourage that at-risk development. So we've been able to take $150,000 or more off the table every year in non-dilutive capital into the company, by kind of plowing money into research and development and engineering. So we've been able to take advantage of that program. Another thing that you're probably all familiar with in the United States is you have this PPP, Paycheck Protection Program, loans and those types of things, and there's kind of forgivable elements to it. Canada took that a step further and actually protected the paychecks of most of the workers of Canadian technologies and kind of across the board. So you were able to access, if you were a revenue generating company and there was a direct impact of COVID, the government was paying attention. They were listening. They were trying to understand how they keep people off unemployment and keep them in jobs. And they created a program that really kind of made sure that happened. And again, this is one of those things that we needed, for survival. And, the government was being proactive and thinking through what they needed to do to keep companies alive, people employed, and off unemployment. So I think that's a good kudos to not just Vancouver, but Canada in general.
Yeah, just to add to Tony's comment, VR, AR is it is all in R&D right now. I don't think there's any real sort of product in the space. There might be a few, but at least the stuff that we're building is heavy R&D. And so the government sees that and funds that and supports that piece. So the timing, everything's timing. So COVID, there was funding. R&D for VR, there's funding from the government, including SRED, another program called IRAP, which is IRAP, which we also took advantage of. And that's basically presenting the government an R&D project that they would fund, 50 to 60% of that. So that's, again, non-dilutive funds directly from the government that you can hire skilled engineers and artists for, and then build and then R&D. And there's milestones that you have to meet. which puts you to task, because then you have to be really sure that your problem is being solved by the solution you're building. So it actually, again, forces you to have timelines and milestones, and then again, really forces you to look at the problem that you're solving again.
Anything to add?
Angela?
I don't think I have anything to add.
Is
You guys
anybody
covered it well.
Did anybody on the panel participate in Supercluster?
No.
No.
Sorry, I missed that.
Supercluster. We none of us have actually been a part of it, but the federal. Oh, there you go. The federal government put $1 billion, or is it $900 million, into a variety of different superclusters all across Canada that specialize in a variety of different things. These are kind of like public, private, plus academic partnerships that get put together in a variety of R&D categories as well. And that's another thing that could potentially be accessed and that you could participate in.
So what are some key pieces to other communities in this ecosystem that they can take away from what we've been doing up here in Vancouver, but like how can we as a community, as a whole VR AR ecosystem, kind of take that next leap and be able to build these powerful ecosystems? And Angela, I'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, so it's a good question. What's jumping into my mind, and I don't know if it's directly answering the question, Dan, but one of the things that we're doing at the Society for Stimulation in Healthcare is, in the past, at the conference, we would have all the simulators, robotic simulators, task trainers for surgeons, different moulage and stuff to be able to replicate scenarios for healthcare workers so they could practice on the simulators and not on real people, which you don't want that to happen. But there was an innovative showcase called the Serious Games in Virtual Environment Showcase, and it was an in-person event. And these were all, screen-based, virtual reality type solutions that had like a serious gaming element there, as well as, using these technologies. And they're all innovative, right? Not a lot of them at the time were productized. And every year there'd be 20 to 30 different new products that would be showing at this in-person event. And it was free for them to present. It wasn't commercial. It was more like a beta testing, right? Or getting feedback for some of the top sim centers or some of the top healthcare systems or innovators like our company in showcasing these new products and getting feedback. And one of the things that we kept on hearing, we've got a membership. I'm the chair. I've been the chair for 4 years. We've got a membership of about 600 healthcare professionals working in simulation. And they're constantly looking, where do I find these solutions? So we all know we need to buy VR this year. We all know that there are solutions out there. People are getting some success, but we've got 20 different clinical areas. How do we prioritize bringing in VR and like what problems are being addressed? And so what we've been able to do over the last year is get some budget from the society to put together a database. And so with this database, anybody that is creating a VR solution with it doesn't necessarily have to have serious gaming, but like focused on simulation in healthcare, we can upload, or they can upload their profile and product to the system, and then everybody else can access. And we're making this a public, hopefully it's gonna be live by March next year, but it's meant to be public, so you don't necessarily have to be a member of the society or part of the group that I'm in. But it was more just to create two things. One, to create awareness and to kind of show off all the amazing work that a lot of these creators are doing that you can only see like one time a year, and if you have a ticket on this particular day, and to make that a year-round thing, and then to help also all the simulation center people have some criteria, right? I kind of described it as like an Airbnb of virtual reality simulation. The user experience won't be as good, I'm sure, because of the budget, but the data will be there, right? And hopefully we can get the UX and look and feel up later. But that's and I hope it's a relevant example. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just to add to that as well, the VRAR Association, they exist everywhere in the world. So a similar model, the challenge is people don't know what VR is yet. There's a lot of people that have never put a headset on. They still say this is AR when they should be talking about VR and vice versa. So providing access to developer content in a much more centralized way around the world, I think helps developers showcase their product without having to ship a headset from here to, say, Istanbul or other places. And I think that's a way that, as a community, we can work together to drive people's products to different parts of the world that they need to just get into a headset and see it. So that's a way that I think the VRAR Association in general around the world can work together. Obviously, the flip side is, most people are a little bit reticent to share their product, when they don't know what's going. You can turn it off and on, but I think there's one avenue to really build that ecosystem and share the wealth in terms of exposure.
What's interesting is that, the VRAR Association has chapters in pretty much every major city that there's kind of activity going on. So the question is like, why is Vancouver different, right? Like, why is our association different? And I think that from my perspective, it comes down to community evangelism as well, and connecting people, providing the resources to founders to feel confidence and that they're going to be well supported. They're going to be connected to the resources that they need. And, Dan has really spearheaded this for us. I mean, he basically works a full-time job unpaid to kind of make all this stuff happen, and literally flies all over the world evangelizing Vancouver. So, I think that that's actually been a really, kind of impactful part of our growth here. If you reach out to any founder of a VR company in Vancouver, they're likely to try to help you directly, but they're also likely to connect you to somebody like Dan, who can, kind of make all those connections in the government sector, private companies that might be interested in buying your product, other founders that could potentially help you in your journey and kind of moving things along, events that might be relevant to you in the area that are going to help you build and find talent and those types of things. And honestly, like, it's actually an incredibly important part of this, because you can set up a chapter anywhere and maybe throw an event once a year. In our heyday, we were doing 6 a year with 300 plus people in them, and this is all from kind of leading with evangelism like Dan does here.
Appreciate that, Tony. I think, yeah, definitely events is such a great way to bring people together. We're here at AWE. Sorry guys, my voice is a bit grainy today. And how important is it for us to get together in person, having that face-to-face. We've been on Zoom for the past year and a half. I've been frankly zoomed out. Danny, do you have anything to add to there?
Yeah, so to add to the uniqueness of Vancouver, so all those 250 companies are probably within a 15-mile radius of each other. So, Gastown, these are just some of the names of the areas in Vancouver. Gastown, Yaletown, Burnaby, perhaps Richmond and Surrey, they're all relatively close. So I think that's the demographic, the geography of Vancouver is unique to that as well, to support in-person meetings. So even if someone has an office in Surrey, which is maybe a little bit farther away, they can still travel that 10 minutes, 20 minutes to get to downtown Vancouver to have a meeting. In-person meeting, there's nothing like it. I mean, there's so much value there. So I think, having that geographical situation we have in Vancouver, again, is one of the unique contributors. But I do think that in-person is really important. Yeah.
Angela?
What was the question again? I zoned out for a second.
How important is it that we
meet in person?
Meet in person.
Oh, it's just lovely. Like, it's absolutely lovely. And I think, the biggest fear, kind of to build on what you're saying, Danny, about like people need to try the headsets on. The biggest fear that I've had, like, returning to shows, like, we're not demoing or we don't have a booth here, but we were at a medical event a few weeks back, and I was thrilled that people put headsets on. So everyone that came to our booth tried out the experience, and that, that really made my day. And I think, these are healthcare workers that know a lot more about, just sterilization, sanitation, like way better than myself. I don't come from healthcare. And it was awesome to see them, feel the safety in being able to do that. So, and I, for them in particular, we used a UV light just to sort of double check, and we were UV lighting the gaskets on the headset, and they all use UV light to sterilize instruments and stuff for surgery in the ORs. So it was technology that they're comfortable with, which I think went, a far way as well. And everybody just wanted to connect. Like, it was just exciting to talk to people, and yeah.
One of my big things is, building community. You need to tell that story. If you're, if you just raised a round of funding, tell that story. And, for other ecosystems, how important is it to be able to tell that story and to tell your story within your own brand or company? Danny, do you want to go first?
Marketing your product is a really, really big piece. And I think we could probably do a better job of that in general, telling that story, being out there. Obviously with COVID, actually, even without COVID, how we market now is very different than what we marketed, say, 10 years ago. Everything's on social media. So there's really no reason why you can't talk about your product. But again, there's a reluctance to do that. In healthcare, for example, it's a fine line between marketing, and you never want to be over-claiming because it's a very sensitive area. But I think that getting your message out there, it's much easier now than it's ever been in the past. LinkedIn, Instagram, and other, there's a multitude of social media platforms. But I think it's important because otherwise no one knows who you are, what you're doing, and where you're doing it.
I'm good.
To add to that, like, one of the things that we found in terms of telling our story, just, really leveraging social media, there's a lot of, reporters and stuff in Vancouver that do cover AR, VR, which is great. So they do reach out to all of us. Dan probably organizes that a lot of the time. Thank you, Dan, again. We found a lot of success in a couple of things that we've done, which is maybe more sort of guerrilla marketing a little bit. I don't know if you'd call it that, but we've been getting a lot of customer stories. So we're finding our school customers are really open to giving us like sound bites for like real experiences they're having with their, with their students. And we've also, and so getting those in video format up, like from Zoom interview, which isn't always, we're tired of seeing that, but it still works. We get the message across. And then posting that to social media has been really valuable. And then even the hospital customers are willing to do blog posts, if they're not sort of willing to do sort of a health system, validated story, which has been great. As well, we've been shipping traveling VR, we call it the traveling VR kit. So we ship it all across the US, and our kit arrives on site. So we've been able to do demos, and then those customers will actually post their experiences on social media. So we kind of get them when they're like super stoked and super excited about it. So, that's how we're telling the story about what we're doing now, which, will shift and change over time, of course. Yeah.
I believe, within community and ecosystems, they need to be diverse. You need to have an inclusive way of bringing people in. And, it's not just about the color of your skin or, if you're male, female, or whatever. It's about, different mindsets, different opinions, and different ways of thinking. I really think that in Vancouver is something that, really is unique. But I think within that realm, like, how important is it, for communities to kind of have that diversity and inclusion? Danny, do you want to go first?
Yeah, there's nothing that benefits more for a startup than diversity in people, which drives diversity in thought. And I think, Vancouver is perhaps one of the most multicultural cities in Canada.
Absolutely.
And, we have, there's some immigration sort of policies that we have as well that allow us to employ people from different countries, including the US, that can come to Canada or stay in the US or in other parts of the world. That's very supported by the government. So that diversity of thought is something that, I can't say enough about it. It's so important. People get different training in different parts of the world that will benefit your company in a way that, I think is, you're missing out if you don't sort of champion that.
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective at Cognitive 3D, we've been able to find diversity in our team, and it's been a really important part of building our organization. One of the benefits of our market is that there is so much diverse talent available. So finding that is somewhat natural and organic, which has been refreshing.
Angela?
I don't know that I have anything to add. Because you cover it well.
Within various communities, there's a lot of various groups or various people, and you'll see a lot of groups within different technologies really pushing it forward. But like, how important for community to be able to work together rather than in silos, Tony?
Yeah, so when I founded the company, the first thing I did was just try to get in touch with as many people as possible. And Vancouver has, when COVID's not going on, there's just so many events going on and networking and all sorts of things. And 2016, we were trying to just validate our hypotheses. Like, are we building the right thing? Is this the right thing to do? And, we reached out to the Cloud Head team, and they were building a fantastic new game that I'm sure everybody's well and familiar with. And he was like, hey, yeah, man, come over to the studio. Denny invited us over and, came by, and we just sat around for a few hours and we showed him the product, what we're trying to do. He told us that it was garbage, and, we threw it all and started over again. But, it was that type of behavior that we saw from, local companies in the ecosystem that, kind of made the connection for me. I was able to kind of cold reach out to someone within that community and get a kind of tangible result that I was trying to work on, all within my ecosystem, of founders and companies within the in the market. So, that was a kind of my kind of first realization. This was back probably early 2016 that we felt we were in the right place.
Yeah, I had a similar experience actually in 2016 at one of the first VRAR events organized by Dan. There was a lot of people there, and a lot of people showcasing their product. And so the feedback, not to add more detail to Tony's comment, but the feedback was immense. So, and having that that diversity of thought in one location pre-COVID was extremely valuable.
Yeah, I miss it. I miss it because we have not, been able to do that in so long. And it's almost like you're missing it. You forget what you had, right? And so it'll be interesting to see, coming to this event is a big deal, and we'll see sort of what other events will start happening locally again and re-energize all of us, right?
What do you think, Dan? Maybe Q1 next year? Let's come together, let's do it.
Yeah, we ready?
I think I can make that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with, we've been talking a lot about community and ecosystems, and I kind of look at ourselves, every one of us actually, within the VRAR ecosystem as evangelists. How important is it to, put a headset on someone new, or be able to educate different enterprises or different companies about how this fits into their business? Do you feel like there is, some sort of something like that you have to kind of really, pick up and run with? Tony, do you want to start off?
Well, I think everybody in the industry does that. I don't know that it's a subset of kind of community, but I think everybody in this industry, if you want to be successful in an enterprise, especially if you're coming in cold, right? So the enterprise is kind of early on in their journey. They don't necessarily know about the technology. They don't necessarily understand. Giving them the best possible experience and kind of trying the technology, trying the right experiences, realizing that this isn't a toy and going to be a game, and that it can actually solve real business problems is something that I think every founder and every member of a startup within this space needs to do, kind of every single day to take things forward. If you come to any of our events in the Vancouver area, you'll notice that we have demos always. There's always demos. So we invite the startups. They all come in. We maybe have 5 every single event. And people are just trying on headsets and getting experiences, and that helps us evangelize not just the local companies that are in the ecosystem. Sometimes people fly up to Vancouver to come to our events, but it also gets the talent excited, right? We're attracting the talent in Vancouver to realize that there's something special going on in immersive technology, and we want them to be a part of it. So giving them those opportunities where they can actually do that. That's why we run really kind of like low-cost events, and try to get as many people as possible, inside headsets.
Yeah, I mean, I spend most of my time educating people about VR. So I think that's just something that you cannot get away from, because it's a new technology. They have to experience it, because it's not possible to explain it to anybody. So, again, adding to Tony's comment, it's probably one of the most important things that any founder or founders of a company has to do for VR to succeed, or XR in general.
Yeah, I really echo and want to build on what both of you guys have said. I think, I'm thinking back to the early days where, it was the first experience for many people. And I know the group of us would always talk about it has to be good. You cannot put people in a bad experience. Never do that, because it's going to harm everybody, right? And I think, the outcome of that, I actually believe that, people stuck to that, right? Far and wide, like local and beyond. And so, of course, there's always like some more challenging experiences, or people that don't want to go into VR. And I think from like a developer perspective, when you think about the ultimate thing that you want to build in VR, it's going to cost a lot of dollars. It's going to take a lot of time and a lot of resources to do that. So being, really, really thoughtful, very strategic, talk to a lot of customers to pick those first few features that can really give you a lot of longevity. And so when you're out there doing a lot of these demos, people say, can it do this and that and that? Don't let that frustrate you. It's on the product roadmap. Once you're a customer, we can, talk about the priorities. So that has been super valuable. And, people coming up and saying, can it do all these things, are actually really good signs they understand what it's doing, and they can really picture what's to come.
Kind of to just extend that, that's actually something we've been doing a lot with Cognitive 3D recently, is that applying some of these community concepts to our product development. So we have been forming like advisory committees of customers and stuff like that, and actually sitting down with them once a quarter and going through the product roadmap line by line, exactly what we're doing, what we're trying to do, and then trying to learn the pain points from our actual users that we might not get, in a support ticket, or, something along those lines. So it's actually attracted new customers to the company, because they realize that they're going to be heard, they're going to have product roadmap influence. And I think that's just an example of kind of community being applied to product development, which we've been benefiting from.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. We're seeing a lot of community development, especially in this Web3 Metaverse conversation that we've been having in the past 6 months, this explosion that's been happening. And, you see Discord servers, with hundreds of thousands of people within these various realms. And I'm really starting to think that that community aspect is going to be important for every industry, every company, and every ecosystem. And, I think that's kind of a really good place to leave it. But I do want to kind of end off with, a statement from you three about, what are you the most excited about within our industry, and what are some takeaways that you can give to the audience here?
All right, I'll go. Yeah, I mean, our industry's come a long way. Back in 2016 when we formed the company, I was thinking games entertainment, rocket ships taking off, here we go. Rock and ruin. And, there was a lot of problems to be solved. And, I kind of feel like we're getting to an inflection point where those problems are solved, and we're seeing POCs, pilots, and other things that, kind of come to fruition. When I think, forward, I think about the metaverse, I think about ubiquity and reality as a spectrum. I think about devices that offer us kind of levels of immersion at the level of immersion that we're looking for. So, we've been calling ourselves at Cognitive 3D the mixed panel for the metaverse. So I'm kind of all in on that. But I'm kind of excited about this idea and principle that the metaverse is, the internet for Web3, and you're able to kind of traverse from all these different spaces. And I'm kind of excited about how that comes to fruition.
Yeah, I mean, as a surgeon and someone who's been looking at this space now for 5 years, the impact that I see with VR that I saw back in 2016, is starting to become more real now, because people are they're familiar with the term virtual reality, familiar with augmented reality. They may not necessarily know what it means or have tried it, but they know the term enough to seek out information. And so obviously this massive tailwind with Facebook converting to Meta, and then obviously all the positives that come from that, really puts that at the forefront, because when the big organizations like them get involved in a technology that we've been driving from a development standpoint for the last 5 years, it's a very, very positive thing. COVID, of course, has also brought that to the forefront without us having to travel. So at least from the healthcare space, there's been some really positives to drive a valuable and powerful technology for the betterment of society. And again, I'm talking from a healthcare perspective. What I'm most excited about is that exact point, is that it's at the front of people's top 5 list as opposed to the bottom of their top 10 list. Something that they need to look at and investigate and actually reach out to companies like ours or others that are in the space to say, what are you doing? How can you help me? This is my problem. So.
What I'm super excited about, kind of building on what you said, Tony, is just reflecting back to, say 2016, and one of the big topics back then was content, right? It's going to take a while for people to build content, and so even personally with our business, I'm seeing we're on track to triple our content this year. And that has a big impact to our customers. And the other thing that I think is really interesting going forward is once you start getting more and more customers on your platform, there's more and more data, right? And so you can really see what kind of impact that you're bringing for us is to healthcare, right? And we know healthcare has just gone through and continues to go through such a challenge. And so, making a positive impact for those workers is, ultimately the end goal. So super excited about all of those kind of key drivers connecting now.
Amazing, guys. It was an honor to be on a panel with you guys. Thanks for putting up with my under the weather sickness. I promise you it's not COVID.
You've been tested how many times?
Yeah.
This was a lot of fun. If there's no Q&A, I guess we'll wrap it up.
I think we do have a Q&A.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, so let's give us our panel a round of applause here. Thank you very much. All right, anyone who has a question can go ahead and line up at this mic.
Thank you. Good job. Good to hear about Vancouver and how we can translate that to our cities. You, as the leaders of your organizations, you're the strategists, you're the head of the pyramid, so naturally you're out in the ecosystem, meeting the others. I want to know how you both enable and encourage the people in your organization to also network, to also be part of that ecosystem, and then what do you do inside the company to exchange that information and get value from that exploration and from that ecosystem contact?
I think we could do a better job. I think some of it's happening right now. And I think once we have in-person events, it'll get a little bit easier, especially local ones, because we don't always have the budget, to send people to travel. But we're lucky that we have a few people on the team that are really interested in VR in the community. And so I just, encourage them to freely share. So we've got daily scrums, or we've started a weekly coffee break kind of thing. So in different sort of social channels. And I'm finding, especially with a few key hires that have a lot of interest in the area, they have the right kind of, contagiousness where it spreads to other people. And, we're just starting to see more chatter. But I think we could always do better.
As an organization, I encourage my team to come to these events. So, when we do events in the local area in Vancouver, you'll see, a whole bunch of engineers from my team actually talking to customers and, meeting with people. And I think that that's actually a really important aspect. And we extend that one step further. Like a number of my team members, they're not in a marketing or customer-facing role at all. We'll bring them to conferences and give them that opportunity to try different types of technologies, the headsets themselves, and have that opportunity to learn how to pitch the product and meet with customers and see that excitement. So I think you start building, kind of superstar evangelists within the team when you give the exposure and the opportunity for them to be a part of the industry, not just a part of your company.
Yeah, for me in the healthcare space, we started off with having engineers with the patient's permission actually come to the OR to watch and understand what that ecosystem is like and actually observe firsthand what it's like to operate, what the instruments are like to handle, how people interact in a team environment. And then we've always, and this is not unique to Vancouver certainly, but focused on creating a learning environment where people can make mistakes. And sort of that culture has been really, really important for us to allow people to get the feedback they need from the field, offer people the opportunity to travel now that travel is opening up again, to make sure they come to the meetings, because the last thing you want to do is develop in a silo. And so although I'm out here today, we're going to be having our engineers, as Tony mentioned, at our next big meeting to get in front of customers and ask the questions that are important to them to really help drive the next product version. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, and one final round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much. We will be taking a little break in this room, but the expo hall is open, so be sure to check it out. Thanks, guys.